Hello and welcome back. This week I thought I'd continue on from last week's talk and talk about the differences, the good and the bad about a motorhome for full-time use, because they're becoming more and more acceptable in full-time use than converted vans. I mean, full-timers used to always convert vans themselves, horse boxes and that sort of stuff, and use those, coaches, buses, all sorts of things that have been converted into usable homes. But now motorhomes are being chosen as a means of full-time, and I thought I would sort of continue that line and discuss, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And it can be bad, because what I didn't realise when I drove out the showroom in this is that it isn't really set up for living in. And I'd spent a lot of money on it, drove it out the showroom, and within the first couple of, I'd say, weeks, I realised that the 200 watt of solar that I had up on the roof wasn't enough. All the plug sockets in the van didn't work because I had no inverter, and it was all running off mains power, and motorhomes are really set up to be driven to a campsite and plugged in. So that was a bit of a shock to me, that I'd already spent a lot of money on a van and it wasn't really working as I wanted it to work. I wasn't as comfortable as I thought I was going to be, and I'd asked for a couple of specs on the van to be upgraded when I bought it, and even with those upgrades it wasn't working as I thought. And I think a lot of people probably get caught out on this, because I did for a start. Right, so the van is made to be driven to a campsite, plugged in, and all these lights and everything in it all run off of 240 volts basically, from the campsite, and that's what they're designed to do. So to live off grid in it, you're going to have to make some modifications. The problem is once you start modifying your newly bought camper van, you're adjusting the interior or certain bits of it, and if you're not careful, you can degrade the value of it. You could quite easily knock off a huge amount of money by making adjustments to your van, even if they are good adjustments for you. If they work better in your life, then they might not work to somebody else's advantage and be a total waste of time. And the dealers, if you want to trade it in or sell it on or whatever, it might not be wanted. So you've got to be careful on what you do and how you do it. And that's one of the downsides to actually having a motorhome as a full-time living arrangement or a full-time home. It's becoming more and more popular to use them. More and more people are buying them, living full-time in them. So yeah, if you've got a van, I'm going to do a van tour in a couple of weeks. I'm trying to get Sue to film it for me so I can actually talk about the van and show you around it, and we'll do a van review. So that will be coming up soon. I've never ever done a van review. I've sort of talked about some of the upgrades I've made, but all that is going to be coming up in a future video. So you have to look out for that. If you've got a van yourself, go onto our Facebook and leave us a picture, and when I do my van review at the end of it, I'll see if I can put up all your pictures on the video. So sort of a bit of sort of interaction from you guys. So yeah, go over to our Facebook group, called the same as the channel, Roads Home. Leave us a picture, or Instagram. If you haven't got Facebook, Instagram will do. Or even email us. If we've got an email address on our channel. If you look through the pages there somewhere, you'll find an email address. If you ain't on Facebook or Instagram, email us a picture and we'll stick them up, and we'll show you some of the vans on the channel. So yeah, a bit of interaction there. Yeah, if you've done a self-build, you can sort of adjust your van how you want it. I mean, if I've got a door over there to me shower and me toilet. If I took that door off and threw it away, I'm probably going to be knocking probably over £500 off the value of my van, maybe even more. Where if you've done it on a self-build, no one will even know there was a door there. So if it comes to selling your van later on in life, or trading it in, or anything like that, you could quickly devalue your van by making any modifications to it. So you've got to be careful on what you do. Where if you've got a camper van that's been converted to your own spec, or you've built it yourself, you could sort of modify it and do what you want. You could put your bed where you want. You could make your bed as big or your chairs as big or small as you like. You could make a garage area if a garage area is important to you. The garage area on this van is very small. I've got a generator that I use throughout the winter. Sometimes I don't use it that often. Since fitting the lithium batteries, it hasn't been used too much. But a couple of years ago, when I was down on the drove, it became really important because I was having really crap weather. So I bought a generator to survive the winter. And that's another thing that you might want to consider if your van hasn't got enough solar. I mean, the roof on this is quite small actually. I've got a big skylight. I've got one big light up, big vent up there, and another big window up here. So I've not got a lot of room up on the roof to put solar panels, but I've filled up what I have got. Again, I'll talk to you about that in the van review. Not review. When I do a van tour, I'll stick that in. Both sort of have their good points and bad points, and a lot of people go on about stealth and stuff like that. Well, I don't believe in stealth. I think stealth is quite a bad idea in some respects, because if you're parked up and in a residential area and people think that your van is parked up and empty, you might get it broken into whilst you're in it. So I don't think the old stealthy thing is the smartest of moves to make. When I was parked up in residential areas in London, I let people know that I was in it. I'd put my screens up. There was a time when I actually made it look like I wasn't in the van, and that's when I attracted some of the hassle that I got. I haven't had a lot of hassle, by the way. If you want to see that video, I've done a video on all the trouble I've had whilst living in the van, and there's not been very much at all. But that come because I made the van look like I wasn't in it. So if you make your camper van look like you're living in it, then obviously you're not going to get as much aggravation. But that's the difference between having a van like this and a van that you've converted yourself. If you've got the big horse box, no disrespect to anyone that's got a big horse box, or Stephen, no disrespect to you guys, but if you go park it outside a posh affluent area, then you're going to get a few heads turned and a few people twitching at their curtains looking at you. Where if I pull up in this and they see me get out and go walking off with my dog, not so many people are going to look. They'd probably think I'm going to be visiting neighbours or family. And that's what I basically done when I was living in London. I would park it up in a nice area, and if people saw that I was living in it, I'll just make myself sort of look like I'm visiting locals. And that's what I got away. That's how I got away with it, basically, because it's a nice van in a nice area. So there is some sort of good points that come from a motorhome rather than a converted tatty van. Another bad point, though, coming from the posh motorhome is that everything, and I mean literally everything on it, costs a lot of money if you damage anything. I broke a mirror a couple of months ago, and they wanted 250 quid from a shop for a copy mirror that wasn't even a main dealer's. A main dealer's I'd probably be looking at £300–400. So yeah, they were looking at 250 quid. There was no way I can afford to pay that. So I bought an eBay, which was exactly the same spec mirror. I cannot tell them apart, except the one I took off was broken, obviously. And I got it for 70 quid. But the dealers and the shops, they'll rip you off. They must think you're made of money because you've got a motorhome. But everything else on the van, you've got to be careful, because again, when I first got it, I had a bit of bumper damage, and parts and everything like that cost you a lot of money to get things fixed. And as time goes on and the van gets older, parts might become unavailable. if it's discontinued from stock, from use, from sale, Sean, you'll know about this with your window, you can't get the parts. They become, well, you've got to start looking at scrapyards or second-hand parts, eBay. You've got to really start sourcing out parts, and they become almost extinct to the point where you have to try and fix it without having the original parts. So yeah, they have got their bad points. A van conversion, you could sort of build it to your own requirements, and if anything does get damaged, it's normally B&Q for a repair. You could go buy whatever you've built it out of, you can go buy another bit of wood at B&Q, paint it up the same, or make it look very similar to what it used to be like. And if part of this got damaged, then to try and get it to look exactly how it was, then I'm going to have a lot of trouble trying to get parts. And the problem is that if I don't get the correct parts, the main dealer parts, I then, if I want to sell it off later on in life or trade it in or anything like that, the value will be knocked down to stupid amounts. The dealers, they know what the van should look like inside, and if there's anything that's not original parts, they will knock it off the price. So that's one of the downsides to owning a motorhome, and something that if you are considering a motorhome as a full-time living means, you need to consider. But as I say, the good points are that you're sort of half set up. You've got everything to a good quality standard. Like the lights should all be wired up correctly, the plumbing should all be wired up correct, and if it's not, or the gas, you get a certificate to say it's all safe. And if it's that sort of instills some sort of confidence in you that what you're buying should be half reasonable, because it should from the beginning be installed quite competently, where with a self-build it might not be. That's something to consider as well, and something that you should be looking at when you're buying a motorhome or a van, that whoever's owned it hasn't tampered with it too much and made things dangerous or changed things around where you're going to lose value on it. So unfortunately, as I've said, I could get away with parking this in quite nice areas, and people think that I'm visiting or just stopping over for the night or something like that, and I'll get away with it in this sort of van. Where if you put up in the big horse box, unfortunately, you're not going to get away with it. They're going to be twitching at their curtains and hating you for it. So that's another consideration of where you're going to park it. But it also might work in your favour, because if you're going to be parking on industrial estates, the horse box might not get looked at. It might not get damaged as bad, or you might not have to worry about it so much. Where a van like this, if I park this on a commercial industrial estate, a lorry yard or something, I've got the risk of people nicking it, which is a very, at the moment, you're seeing on Facebook and all the Facebook groups, vans and the camper vans are being nicked left, right and centre, which is why I've done the video a little while back. So you've also got to worry about where you're parking it and the security on the van, which is going to again eat into your money, because you've got to think about where you leave it and stuff like that. I mean, if you're going out to work all day, you might have to put it on a campsite just simply to keep it. Otherwise, you might come back to your home and find it gone. So that's the other worry about an expensive motorhome. So they all have their own good and bad points, unfortunately. And there's no right or wrong. You've got to consider everything that works for you. Okay, so I think that is where I'm going to leave it today. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to put your pictures up on the Facebook group, or on my Facebook channel, so I can link those on the video. Keep an eye out for the van tour that's going to be coming in the near future. I'll get around to filming that. That should be interesting, because no one's ever done a tour on my van, so that'll be a first. I'll show you all the modifications that I've done, and speak a bit more about why a motorhome over a van. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.